Okay, so here is the setup for question 7.5. You have chromosome 3 in Drosophila. You have two genes. It gives you information about two genes, striped and ebony. Striped is 62 centimorgans from the left end of the chromosome, and ebony is 70 centimeters from the left end of the chromosome. I started to write down the parental cross, but I don't think we need to write that down. The important thing is that in the F1s, you have the phase of the alleles that look like this. On one chromosome, you have ebony and wild type striped. On the other chromosome, you have wild type ebony and striped. And the important information here is that they are 8 centimorgans between each other. There's an 8 centimorgan distance between each gene. Okay, you just got that from minusing 62 from 70. All right, so it wanted to know what are the F1 gametes of what are the gametes that are produced by these F1 individual if it's a female. And so here you have to sort of think about it in terms of, okay, where did this 8 centimorgan distance come from? And so basically that tells us that 8% of the time in the production of the gametes, there's going to be a crossing over event that occurs between these two genes. If you have that crossing over event that occurs 8% of the times, or in 8% of the total gametes produced, you get gametes that are the result of a crossing over, right? That tells you that if you, let's just say you had 100 gametes, that you would have to have, you would expect 4 gametes to look like this, and 4 gametes to look like this, 4 gametes to be wild type, and 4 gametes to be ebony striped. And if to get that, just pretend you had that crossing over event here between the two genes. Therefore, after that crossing over event, the wild type would come over here, and the ebony mutation would come over there. Okay, so in order to get 8 over 100, you then have to just sort of fill it in with the no crossing over gametes. And so the no crossing over gametes are exactly like they are here in the F1. And so you'd need 46 of the ebony wild type and 46 of the wild type striped. Okay, and so that's just sort of doing it in reverse of what we have been doing when we've been up until this point when we've been calculating those distances. Okay, so in B, it asks the same question, but for males. The caveat that you need to know here is that crossing over does not occur in Drosophila males. That's not actually something I don't know if I talk about it in the lecture. So you probably won't need, so sometimes I even forget it myself. So if when you looked at the back book and you saw this, you thought, oh, wow, that's new to me, that don't feel too bad about it. Okay, it's not something that I really focus on. So these F1 individuals, since there's no crossing over occurring, 100% will look just like the gametes in the F1s. Okay, so C is asked the question: if you have the F1 females and you cross them with the double recessive males, right? What would the proportions of the what would the phenotypic classes be? The proportions of the phenotypic classes, and since it's recessive, the phenotypes are just going to be are going to result in the same proportions that the gametes are produced in that F1 female. And so here are the percentages that the gametes are produced, right? And so if you just basically fuse each of these with the recessive, it's not going to change anything, right? So it's 46% are going to be ebony wild type, 46% are going to be wild type striped, 4% are going to be wild type, and 4% are going to be ebony striped. Okay. The last one, the last D, part D, is a little bit more complicated. There's a couple different ways that you can do it. The answer in the back of the book gives it in sort of a table form. I think it's easier just to think about crossing these two, right? So here's your F1 males and here's your F1 females. And these are the percentages that the gametes are going to be present, right? So half of the gametes for the male are going to be ebony wild type, and half the gametes for the male are going to be wild type striped. And so I just created all these classes. So I just took this first gamete from the female and fused it with that gamete, right? So ebony wild type, there's ebony wild type. fused it with the other one. I took ebony wild type gamete from the female and fused it with a wild type stripe from the male and created that one. And then did the same thing for that one, the same thing for this third one. Can you see where I'm putting the cursors? This is the fusion, right? This is ebony stripe fusing with ebony wild type, and then ebony stripe fusing with wild type stripe. And so I just created each of these, and because these are two different events, right? So say you have two bags of gametes and you reach your hand in and pull out this gamete from the this gamete from the female, gametes bag. The probability of doing that is 46%. Reaching into the male gamete bag and pulling out this gamete is 50%. So those are the two events, right? So you just times those two together. So times 46% times 50%, and you get 23%. Times 46% here, and then 50%, you get 23%. So all of these, then the probability of getting these two gametes each of these gametes coming together are all 23%. Doing the same here, 4% times 0.5%, 4% times 0.5%, you get 2%, 2%, 2%, and 2%. Okay, in the back of the book, at least in the 6th edition, it does the math wrong, and it gives you instead of 0.02, it gives you 0.002. And that's wrong because these all have to sum to 100. And so 23 plus 23 plus 23 plus 23 equals 92. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 8. That equals 100%. If you add up the ones in the back of the book and the answers in the 6th edition, it doesn't equal 100. So that should be a red flag for you. Okay, so we can actually also, they don't ask this, but we can also do the phenotypes. So we can add up the phenotypes from each of these. So ebony wild type. This one is ebony. This one is this combination is an ebony wild type, and then this combination is an ebony wild type. So that equals 25%. You can do wild type striped. So here's wild type striped here, and then here's wild type striped here because the wild type is dominant. That's also 25%, and all of the rest of them because they each have at least one wild type gamete at each of those chromosomes are all going to give you a phenotype that's wild type. Okay, so that's problem 7.15.